tonight. God, last night as all of America watched this young man so seriously injured in that sporting event, all of a sudden football was no longer important. Fans from opposing sides cried together and prayed together. It did not matter the color of the skin, the political persuasion, but what mattered was there was a greater need, and we saw unity last night. God, I pray for a spirit of unity that might trickle down right here into our county. God, that we would put agendas aside. Lord, it doesn't matter what our political persuasion is, the color of our skin, what church we go to. God, what matters is the greater need. Lord, I pray for this meeting tonight. I pray for each commissioner, as I do every day. God, that you would just guard our words tonight, guard our thoughts. Lord, may what we say and may what we do bring honor to our King of Kings and our Lord of Lords. Thank you for the privilege of prayer, Lord Jesus, because you taught us how to do it. And I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor. One thing I'd like to point out, and if you notice something new behind us, in God we trust, that's our nation's motto, which I think most of you all know. And I'd like to thank the board as a whole because we voted unanimously to place that in our boardroom. And it was provided by a person named Rick Lanier, who's with it's the U.S. Motto Action Committee. And what they've done is they've gone around to county buildings throughout North Carolina, and they've offered to put this motto either on our boardroom wall or on the exterior building, places like that. And they've actually gone to 69 of the 100 counties in North Carolina now, placing that motto. So I just want to point that out in case anybody were to notice. And at this time, the first item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, first I want to say Happy New Year to you and everyone within the sound of my voice. And I hope that 2023 is an outstanding year. Before we approve the agenda, if I may, I would like to make a motion that we go into a very brief, 10-minute max, closed session in the small conference room to consult with our attorney. And I Mrs. Canley, kindly request that the clerk be excluded from this session and ask the county manager to take notes for us.
Sir.
I've got a motion and a second by Commissioner Mims. Any more further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 What
All-
general statute are you going in now?
To consult with the attorney, I would assume this would, okay, yes,
That's
sir.
correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, we have, all those in favor, we have 5, 6, I guess I need to see the show of hands, cause they went up pretty quick. Okay, so we have, 6 in favor, 1 opposed, so the motion carries. We'll go into a brief closed session.
Just fine.
At this time, I'd like to ask Attorney Forbes to give his recommendation on how we should approach the minutes.
Upon legal advice, it is after reviewing the minutes that we have, it's my recommendation.
You come out of closed session.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We haven't come out of closed
Okay.
session.
Someone make a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Little. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. It is unanimous. Okay. A question again. I'm sorry for Attorney Forbes. What is your recommendation on how we move forward with the minutes?
It's my recommendation after some concerns have been voiced and upon advice from other attorneys and other legal advice, that the board not approve the minutes as presented at this time. That they would be held over and for something to be a little more complete, maybe even an actual transcript of the actual recordings may be appropriate, because these will be the official record and there is litigation going on.
And
That
is
would be
that
my
advice
recommendation for
for,
that.
is that advice for all three, the December 1st, December 5th, and December 6th?
It is.
Okay, thank you. What would the pleasure of the board to take that advice be?
Make a motion that we accept the advice of our attorney and hold the minutes for the December 1st, 2022 meeting, the December 5th meeting, as well as the December 6th meeting.
Is anyone second? Second by Commissioner Mims. Any more discussion? All those in favor, I'm sorry.
When you get ready to approve tonight's agenda, I need to make 2 comments about removing an item or 2.
Okay, that's, okay, thank you, yes, sir. Okay, all those in favor of tabling the minutes for those 3 meetings, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. We have 6 for, 1 against. The motion passes. So we're going back into the approval of the agenda, and at Manager Salzman's request, there's going to be 2 items from his manager report that'll be removed. So would you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you could remove item 7A, that's of the T-Mobile cell tower at the Burnsville elevated water tank contract. It's not ready. We're still negotiating price. I think everything else is pretty much okay, but we're trying to get Commissioner Gatewood some more money.
Good. I need it.
And seriously, we are checking with folks that are in the business to find out, what a pretty good price is for us. So we'll come back with you, hopefully it's February meeting on that one. And then the other one is the record rotation service ordinance. That is 7E. That's not ready for adoption yet because I understand there's some commissioners who like for further consideration. So I'll just ask you to take those off and continue until a later date.
Okay, we'll make that note, and we are excited in the Burnsville area for T-Mobile because our internet coverage for those of us that live out there is not that great, so we'd be happy to wait and get that right. So at this time, do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the changes? I'm sorry, for commissioner concerns. Do we have any commissioner concerns for the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I just got a couple things. They're not concerns. This is more for informational purposes. Both of them are regards to Central Atlanta. The first one is the Connect Beyond program that Central Atlanta developed. It's been several years ago, and now Central Atlanta is ready to move forward with implementing that plan. It's about mobility among all of the counties in the Central Atlanta region, as well as internally in each county. And the program that's getting ready to be implemented is called Advancing the Plan. I am on that committee for that. And as I think our first meeting is towards the end of the month, and I'll be bringing back information in regards to that. And I think everybody that has had some input in that has made Central Atlanta aware of what our concerns are and what the outcomes that we would like to see. So I'll be asking for input from this board as well as the entire Anson County community for this project. And the second thing is a grant that I don't have all the information on yet, but I'll go ahead and mention it. And since I've had a conversation with the county manager about this, is a grant to revitalize the downtown building. We're looking at the Anson County Courthouse, since that is a historic building. And as soon as we get that information, I'll bring that back as well.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Woodburn.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 brief announcements.
Yes, sir.
Would you like me to do it now?
Yes, sir.
All right. I received a call from Ms. Marlene Richardson and Frank Richardson last week, and they want to invite everyone in Anson County to the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. It will be held on Monday, January the 16th at 9 a.m. at the Lockhart Taylor Center. And this year's theme is Unity in Anson County. Number 2, on December 7th at 2:30 in the afternoon, DSS had an excellent retirement celebration for 3 employees that will soon be retired. Mary Kendall with 30 years of service, Robin Bowers with 30 years of service, and Beth Rogers with 25 years of service. Over 80 years of service is leaving Anson County government later this month. And I'm also pleased to report that Ms. Lula Jackson and her staff did a super job of decorating their lobby and providing us with nice refreshments, and we had 5 commissioners attend that session. So congratulations to those 3 employees, and I really applaud the board for your participation. Thank you very much.
And thanks for all your involvement with social services. Okay, at this time, would we make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda with the noted changes and additions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed 7-0. Okay, all right, now, at this time, do we have a motion to go into our public hearing?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Tanya Bird from Axe. At this time, we need a motion. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be here this evening. It's that time of year for me to apply for the 2024 capital grant. The total for this year, for the 2024 year, is $311,045. The federal share of that is $248,836. The state share is $31,104, and our local share will be $31,105. This will include two 13-passenger light transit vehicles, one 6-passenger minivan crossover, 4 radio base stations, 15 mobile units for the vans, and 2 handheld radios. And this also includes the installation and 1 year of airtime for the radios.
Can we get an update on the catalytic converter situation? Has that been resolved pretty well?
I still have 2 that is waiting to be repaired. They're on back order. He gave me an estimate last week of 5 to 6 weeks.
And you've included that additional cost to put those protective covers around them?
That is not included on that because the last ones we had stolen, they cut through those.
Okay.
I am working on getting a refund back for the ones we have not have installed yet.
Okay, all right. If there's any questions, or at this time, do we have a motion to adopt the 2024 capital budget?
First, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we come out of closed session.
I think we need to ask if the public has any questions or comments first. Then we can close the public hearing.
Closed session?
No. We have to close the public hearing before we take action on the request of Ms. Bird.
Okay.
But before we close the public hearing, we need to make sure that nobody in the public, nobody in the audience has any questions or comments.
Okay. All right. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments?
I do.
Okay.
My name is Laura Laney, and one of my comments is, and I don't necessarily think this would affect the fiscal year 2024, but something that needs to be considered in the ACTS budget is accessibility of veterans, Anson County veterans, to VA hospitals by ACTS transportation. Currently, the ACTS transportation doesn't use county funding to provide transportation to regional VA hospitals, including Charlotte and Salisbury. It would be nice for that to be included in the routes going forward, and either partner funding by Veteran Services or through the county services. If we provide transportation to Charlotte hospitals for other Anson County citizens, we just ask the same for our veterans.
Okay, Mr. Salzman and Attorney Forbes, go ahead.
Ms. Laney, with respect, what are your qualifications for knowing that information? It was very impressive. I just want to, for the record, we wanted to make sure of it.
My husband is a 100% disabled veteran, and he has personally tried to contact ACTS to get transportation to the VA hospital in Salisbury, and has been denied. I've also had discussions with the Director of Veteran Services in Anson County, who has also confirmed that information.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Would y'all be willing to look into that, and then we could see what we can do?
Absolutely, because logistically speaking, as Tanya knows, with the new annex building that is now occupied by both her operation, ACTS, and also Andrea's operation, which is Veteran Services, it's just a matter of logistically of getting them together and seeing if we can work out something, what we have to do.
Andrea and I have been in contact with each other discussing that matter.
Excellent, excellent.
And what they're saying is now they're co-located in the same facility where you used to be away from each other, so you have
Correct.
a better opportunity to work together. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that comment, ma'am. Okay, so now I would say at this time we need a motion to adopt the 2024 capital budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we come out of the
We'll close the public hearing.
public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So coming out of the public hearing, then we make the motion to adopt the 2024 capital. Oh, I'm sorry. I made the motion, second by Commissioner Woodburn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Okay, at this time, we need to make a motion to adopt the 2024 capital budget.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Acts FY 24 capital budget.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Smith and Gatewood. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda that includes property tax refunds and adjustments?
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with only item B, property tax refunds and adjustments.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioners Little and Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Now for the public addresses, right now, we got the list of names. Here we go. Okay, in the public addresses, I was just gonna, first let me read about, the background for the conflicts. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, GS 138A, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the board? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from undue participation in that particular matter involved. Does anyone have any conflicts as we move forward? Okay. Then on the public addresses, let me just mention what the policy that we look at. Commissioners are expected not to comment on matters brought to the board during this time, but to delay action or comment until staff has had an opportunity to research the subject matter and to report necessary and relevant information to all members of the board. And each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. And first, if Ms. Lott would please come forward.
Hello.
Hey.
For expediency's sake, my husband is next, and he is yielding his time to me so that I can get through this because I couldn't get it 3 minutes or under. So it's a little over 5. And you're all blurry to me now, so I can read this. If you don't know who I am, I'm a farm woman, wife, and mother in the Burnsville area that got involved proactively in Anson County last summer in the discussion and development of the new zoning draft. My dog in the hunt, for lack of a better term, is entrepreneurship, home industry, cottage industry, self-sufficient families here in our county. People utilizing their skills, homes, and their land as leverage to raise themselves up. I've been concerned from the beginning that the new proposal had harmful language inclusive in the draft, in direct conflict from the express purpose. So with the help of Commissioner Bricken at the time, who was now chairman, and other commissioners on the board, we were able to put a halt for a period of time on any voting. In the interim, the consultants were tasked to add broad inclusive language to promote and protect home-based businesses, as well as to remove dangerous language that would allow industries and corporations to take advantage of Anson County. They were also to include the land waiver promoted by Commissioner Bricken. At this time, as far as I know, the only thing that has been changed was the waiver, even though our commissioners expressly asked for all of it. When actively asked about the language back in October, the consultants said they weren't familiar with that language, that they would have to look into it. They also urged that we should pass this draft as written, then do text amendments afterwards to make any corrections. Why the insistence to pass it as is with the detrimental language and the resistance to making the changes that we have asked for? Upon further research last week, I stumbled across a question from a resident to the consulting firm during the meetings over the past 2.5 years. And it was simply, are we going to have lithium mines in Anson County? So of course I hit Google and I questioned whether we have lithium mines or minerals under Anson County, and thankfully we don't. Further research indicated that Gaston and Lincoln counties has one of the most pure veins of lithium in North Carolina. And there's a company called Piedmont Lithium that is actively seeking for approvals in the zoning in order to open 4 500-foot pits in those counties, operational by 2026. You have before you a printed copy of that current news article, thanks to Ms. Denise and her hard work today. Like any progress, the infrastructure must be laid well in advance. When I researched the byproduct of lithium mining, I find sulfuric acid, a corrosive substance destructive to the skin, eyes, teeth, and lungs. Severe exposure can result in death, along with other hazardous waste, low activity radioactive waste, etc.
That's 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
That's 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm better than I thought. So, the dangerous specific wording in the draft before us are hazardous waste storage, low activity radioactive waste, low explosive storage, unlimited permitted landfills under 10 acres and over 10 acres throughout the county, earth extraction, and etc. None of which in my mind adhere to the purpose to protect, promote rural agricultural residential lifestyles. Further, imagine my concern when connecting the dots that the consultants that are designing the draft are not from within our county. They are actually from Gaston County. That's my understanding. They came on board during one of the previous county managers who also placed the manager of the landfill on the steering committee, which is a huge conflict of interest as they are a huge beneficiary of the new proposed draft. I don't know at this time exactly how that happened and who reached out to whom. And I don't know if these things are oversight, crazy coincidences, or if they were done with an express purpose. But billion-dollar industries play a long game, and they lay a quiet foundation. All I know is that the end result for Anson County is destructive. We're a one-tier county, a low-income, poverty-stricken county working extremely hard to build ourselves up in multiple ways. We have low to no organized resistance to corporate entities and industries that recognize the potential for them to exploit our complacency for their benefit.
Ma'am,
Sir,
that's 3 minutes.
okay, he will yield his time to me. Mr. Lott yields his time to me, the
Okay.
next 3. We have a zoning document established in 2005, voted on, accepted, and signed by Commissioner Woodburn, currently used in portions of Anson County. So I stand here before you tonight respectfully asking you to deny the zoning draft put forth by the Ability Group out of Gaston County. Carefully scrutinize the maps that they have designed and bring in the established zoning ordinance that is active right now in our county. Modify it for our future needs and make it county-wide. We have been told to focus on gaming houses and alcohol referendums, those things that are morally important to our residents, while quietly and carefully other language has been added that have far greater and lasting ramifications. We won't have to worry about gaming houses or alcohol referendums or even law enforcement issues because nobody's going to want to live in a hazardous waste designated county. At first I thought all of this was oversight. I thought maybe this was a cut and paste zoning draft, a template that could be tailored fit to Anson County. I don't believe that anymore. Why would outside consultants not want to encourage small business and sustainability in our county? Why would outside consultants purposely add language that is harmful to the well-being of plants, people, animals, and the land in an agricultural county? They have 30 years in the industry or more. Surely they understand their job. Why didn't any of our leadership catch this over the past 2.5 years? Why was an existing zoning ordinance that is active in Anson County not used as the blueprint for the rest of the county? And now that you've heard this and understand the potential, what are you going to do about it? I could be completely wrong. There could be completely innocent explanations. But even if I'm wrong in this context, why is the language still included? It gives big business and industries the option to come in and use our county as their dumping ground. And if not lithium, then what? And if not Piedmont Lithium, then who? And it's not going to be will they, it's going to be when they. And I know there's a great deal of effort into rebranding Anson County as an agritourism type environment to encourage profitability and a solid tax base. If we allow hazardous waste, radioactive waste, low explosive storage, unlimited landfills, and earth extraction industries into Anson County, you can kiss that all goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lott. Now, if Charles McGinnis, Mr. McGinnis, please.
Guys, I'm not gonna do a speech because Ms. White did a better job than I could do, but I agree with everything she said. This thing is, I'm holding up, I got two documents. I got the 21 document, 2021 document, and I've got the 2005 document. I poured through both documents. The 2005 document is a superior document to the 2021. So, along with the 21 document is just surrounded by too much mystery. There's too many questions that need asking. One of them is, who brought it up to start with? Who brought it here? The second question is, why did they present to us the impression that Anson County didn't have any zoning when I've got a 2005 document, zoning document, with Mr. Jarvis's name on it? So, three other commissioners know about this 2005 document, and yet I was under the impression, and I imagine most of everybody else in Anson County, that this document didn't exist. So there's just too many questions that need asking. My recommendation is we shelve this thing, call them up tomorrow and tell them we want our money back. Tell them that it was misrepresented. We're not sure why we did it when we already have a zoning document, and Anson County citizens shouldn't have to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Okay, Ms. Lanning?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you once again tonight about just two other issues. One of them actually kind of piggybacks on what we were actually just discussing, but not exactly the same way. My concern is the lack of recycling services and availability of recycling services in Anson County. Since before the holidays, the recycling bins at the landfills have been overflowing. At both the convenience center, specifically White Store, as well as the public landfill on Highway 74. This is a time when there's going to be even more things to recycle, and yet we have less accessibility to do that. I understand that temporary interruptions can happen, but if there are temporary interruptions at Waste Management, then they should be communicated. They should be communicated to our county, they should be communicated to our citizens, and alternative options should be made available, as well as a time that things will be back to standard operating procedure. My family did actually try to reach out to Waste Management directly. We're put in a customer service queue for almost an hour, and finally went back to our business. It shouldn't be that hard for us to do the right thing. Again, she mentioned agritourism is a big part of Anson County, and we can't do that if we have one big landfill. So I just ask that you consider, the Board of Commissioners consider with the Waste Management contract to have clear wording as to the accessibility, which is required by state statute, of recycling services for the Anson County citizens, including accessibility at our convenience centers, and what happens when we don't have that. So I appreciate your support with that. The other quick thing I wanted to mention also is related to veteran services that I mentioned previously with my ACTS comment in public hearing, is that when it's time for the Anson County Health Department to be considered for their new budget, I asked the Board of Commissioners consider that they ask that their contract physician license include accessibility of CHAMP VA federal insurance for veteran families to the Anson County Health Department. At this time, veteran families cannot use the services of Anson County Health Department because it does not accept CHAMP VA, because the contracted physician's license, the contracted physician whose license is used by the health department does not register with VA billing. They accept Medicare, they accept Medicaid, but they do not accept CHAMP VA. So, all again for Anson County veteran families, all we're asking is the same, not more, just the same access to county services that other families have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lanning. Now, Gerald, Mr. Miller. Mr. Ellerby, Pastor.
Good evening. How you all doing this evening? I came with a question. Really didn't have a speech to make. I spoke with the county manager, and I spoke with a couple of commissioners. And I stated in my last appearance here, December the 6th, concerning the handling of citizens being able to get into the board meeting. I was met at the door along with other citizens that had arrived early, and that was that was in line to enter into the board meeting, which is a public meeting. I was told by our fire marshal for the county, Rodney Diggs, and you all are aware of it. He was present. I think he may have stepped down or whatever. That it was full, max capacity. Town of Wadesboro fireman, I believe it was Scott Martin, was at the front door on his behalf, and he reiterated that message to those of us that were in line. And while standing in line, a citizen was approached the front door and was gave the same message, but yet a phone call was made, and that citizen was allowed in the meeting through another entrance. And so I'm expecting an answer within a reasonable time frame of how that could be. We have county employees that have to do a job and be equal to all people. And I'm expecting an answer pretty soon. And we don't have personal preferences. I made mention of that before. And that just not, that shouldn't be allowed by me, you, or anyone else. And so I spoke to, I don't need much more time, but I spoke to the county manager. I'm supposed to get that explanation. And I would like to hear back from this board. I don't know what your statutes or your time frame before you can answer on the matter, but I'm expecting an answer in the next couple of weeks. I was told by him, I approached him as I should as a citizen. I saw him in CBS. His response to me was the higher ups told him it was okay. I want to know who the higher ups are. Is it this board? Is it somebody else above this board? And so I would like to have an answer to that. And I'm expecting within the next 2 weeks. All right? Or if I was told I could get an explanation tonight, but I'm under the assumption that those statutes was read previously before this public address to kind of make it known that that may not be the case. But I would like to hear back from someone real soon, or you'll be hearing from me soon. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ellerby. Okay, at this time, we're going to move to today's appearances, starting with Mr. Larry Newton.
I was asked, or I asked to be put on the agenda because of changes and all that we're making in the tax office. So I think as commissioners, y'all need to know what's going on in the software change and where we're at in that process and what to expect as we move forward with this. So you all know that we're extremely busy in the tax office this time of the year. Other departments are too, so I'm not minimizing them. Collecting at the end of the year gets to be a push. You have those taxpayers that wait to the last minute, even though they've had the deal since September, and they want issues, corrections, and they're trying to beat that January 6th interest date. And with the changes that have been made, I think we're certainly handling the volume we're having downstairs adequately. I don't think, or I hope you haven't been getting complaints, but I do know that there has been some questions, like for instance, credit card payments, pay by phone. Of course, we always accept checks, cash, whatever. But an issue did come up that I think was addressed with some of the commissioners here about the charges on credit cards, charges on debit cards, and et cetera. And I got the information that that I needed to at least tell you if you get a call concerning paying by at least a credit card or a debit card, what those parameters are that govern, in other words, that type payment. And what it is if they use a debit card, it's $3.95 flat, no upcharge, nothing. If they use a credit card, it's based on the amount of the bill, and it's 2.7% of that bill. Now, we're using the same credit card service company that is being used in utilities, which of course they're on the Edmunds software, and I think Edmunds, you know, pretty much helped them get set up in that direction. So when it came to getting a credit card servicer in the collections department, it felt or it seemed to be the right thing to do to get the same credit card service company using utilities and Edmunds software. Let us use the same credit card service company downstairs, which we did. And I think where the issue became evident is that if you're down there paying a water bill that's $35 to $60, and if it's with a credit card and it's 2.7%, it's hardly nothing. But if you're paying a property tax bill down here that's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and it's with a credit card, it's 2.7%. And that seems to be pretty standard, in other words, across the board. We investigated it, we checked it, and that I think we're getting as good a service or as good a rate as we can get at right now. We're about 80% converted in in the collections department, and we had 20% is pretty much will be completed by the next 3 to 4 weeks. Now, when we started initially, and I want to thank the commissioners for allowing the tax office to have a part of changing a software program that initially was purchased here in the county, and in moving into that software, finding out that it was not what we needed. So I want to commend the commissioners for allowing the tax office to switch software providers. We're pleased with what we have. We think that, in other words, it will provide the service that the customer deserves at the front. And even though we're very early into or very late into the collection side of it, we're fixing to start the tax side and the assessing side of it in the next, say, 45 to 60 days. So we are making progress. A new system means new training. It means new options. I want to commend the staff in collections for being trained on 2 systems in the last 18 months. They have really been on top of it, and I commend them for that. We have, with the new software, a lot of tools that we haven't had in the past to collect taxes. We've been running the system in collections and in tax assessing and tax software, a 30-year-old system. And when you move from 30 years old up to a system that is current and is, as far as I'm concerned, the state of the art, you get a lot more options, you get a lot more service, you get a lot more opportunities to serve and to do a good job at what we are supposed to be doing. In the new system, and it's like some of the things that we'll have that we haven't had, or at least been streamlined, and this is on the collection side. Of course, we'll have batch payments. We'll have web service, which we've had with the old system with business information systems. We're going to have a new tracking and a new garnishment format, in other words, for garnishments of back taxes. That also expands over into bank attachments and extraction from accounts. With the new system, we'll be able to put in a date, any date in the system, and it will calculate that bill right then, irregardless whether it's an old bill, a new bill. If they decide they want to know, well, what's this bill going to be next September, then we can put that date in there and it will calculate that being paid in September with the proper interest applied, in other words, in that process. We'll have the opportunity to random pay bills, partially pay bills, pay bills ahead of time, which we basically have that option now, but it's a little antiquated in that it's a 2 or 3 step process. And now when somebody comes in, we hardly ever use it, but we basically just don't take prepayments on bills that's never been generated. But we will be able to, with this, we'll be able to code bills so that when collections pulls it up, it'll say, you know, if we're taking a bad check, it will flag that bill. If there's a bankruptcy, it'll flag that bill. If there is a, if there's anything that would draw the attention to that customer as far as something not being like it should, then we can code that into the system. In other words, to let that collection person know that that they need to either come back to our tax office or either, in other words, question, in other words, what is telling them the problem is. It'll code appeals. Actually, the system up there will do deferred tax bills. We won't push deferred tax bills up there. We'll keep that in the tax office. We can do certification of tax bills through the system and not have to do them manually, which is actually a general statute 361. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to do that we haven't been able to do, which I think is going to enhance the service that we provide the customers. We're happy with the system as it is, you know, being completed. I believe it was a wise choice. I want to talk a little bit about a timeline, because I know that commissioners have had questions about property tax cards, when we're going to get them, what's the status of that. Well, it's still going to be March or April before we have property tax cards, and we know what happened on the property tax card issues. That's when the ransomware hit and took the system down and destroyed, in other words, that service within our system. But anyway, we'll have property tax cards hopefully by March or April. The new system will give us multiple screens, not only for the tax office inside, but for the customer. We'll be able to pull up property tax cards, we'll be able to pull up GIS, and we'll be able to look at photos all at one time with split screens. There's some enhancements on the appraisal process. Now we can only isolate like neighborhoods within the county for reviewing values and property tax assessments. We'll be able, in other words, to quarry now from neighborhood to neighborhood to basically bring it together and see how those relate to one another as far as values are concerned. It's a great step forward for the tax office. And I want to say thank you for what y'all have done and allowing us to move forward with this, and to allow our citizens to hopefully receive better service as a result of it. Actually, a lot of everything that we're doing now in the old system is all keyboard. This is Windows based, so it'll be much faster, it'll be much more efficient, it'll be easier to maneuver and to operate. I think that there's some time saving things here that will help not only us in the tax office, but finance. Finance has always done TR1s, TR2s, AV50s, and all these state forms that no one's have to be in, and we've run behind on them every year, and now that can all be generated downstairs through the new tax software that we're installing. So it's going to be, I think, more efficient. We'll have a whole new sketch program for sketching properties on property tax cards. We'll be able to do angles. We'll be able to do curves. It will calculate them automatically once they're drawn. So I'm just saying, as you have questions from citizens, call me if I need to talk to a citizen, or if they have issues of something that, in other words, that they don't know or understand, we'll be glad to do that. But I just want to say thank you for making that change. It was not cheap. It was expensive to really ditch what we had already started, which you weren't responsible for. And we know that from experience in what we did, or they did, that it wasn't really our choice, but you were willing, in other words, to say, let's move ahead. So I thank you for that. I also want to say that we got revaluation coming up, 2026. That in itself, we will start 18 to 24 months earlier than 26, because it's got to be rolled out January 1, 2026. So we will start at least early into 2024 doing reval. And as you know, we put back money every year, in other words, to pay for that process, which is required by the state. We're on an 8-year cycle. In 2010, we spent over $500,000 on reval. We have right now, currently about 20,000 parcels. And then, in 2018, we spent about $350,000 on revaluation. And we really, or I really haven't talked to, I'll say, commissioners about what approach we want to make this cycle. We can spend probably another $500,000 if we want to, but in my opinion, I'm not sure that it's going to be necessary. I will say this, in going back to the public side of the access to the tax records. In 2010, we took photographs of the whole county, every property that had an improvement in it. We have never had the opportunity to put photos online. The old system never would accommodate it. But in 2010, we photographed everything in that reval. We photographed again everything in 2018. The 2010 photographs are not retrievable, but the 2018 are sitting on a server that don't belong to us at another location. And I believe that we will photograph everything again in 2026, but I believe, and I'm hoping, we can retrieve those 2018 photographs and load them on to the new system that we have. I've been encouraged that we can, and we are going to be able to do that, so you can see at least the sequences of the revals and what the property was like at those indexes. But anyway, if you have questions, call me. I'm available. If there's something that I need to do, or you have any suggestions, or if you have taxpayers that want to talk to us in the tax office, you tell them to call me direct to 3211, and I'll be glad to help them, or at least give them an answer. And I'm here tonight to answer any questions you might have, because I haven't addressed the board since the software change started. And so I'm here if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.
Larry, I just mentioned one thing, don't give up on finding a flat rate credit card company, because I think that could be discouraging to some people if they have to pay, an extra amount of money just to take care of their taxes. So, it's been a lot of years since I had to deal with that, but I don't know what's out there now and how they operate, but I wouldn't give up. I keep looking to see if you can find a flat rate credit card company.
Actually, we had one. When water, before water was changed over to Edmonds, we actually had that. We had a flat rate credit card company, and the rates that they're charging now, the 2.7, and like you said on tax bill that's $3,000 or $4,000. That's a lot of money, and some people are not going to pay it. I wouldn't pay it either. But we don't get that money. That's another thing I want to say. We don't get that 2.7 fee that's being charged. That credit card servicing company gets that money.
Right.
So if we went to a no fee or whatever credit card carrier, we're not losing any revenue because we wasn't getting it to start with. That's exactly right.
Yeah, my thought is to make it easier on our citizens, so they're not having to pay any more than they need to.
Yeah, and in my opinion, if no rate or no charge for a credit card thing's fine. I don't think $3.95 is too absorbent or whatever if it's any amount that you can pay, from there up on $3.95. But we did have that at one time. The only reason we win, as I stated earlier, with that carrier is because that's what water was using, and they felt like it was easier for finance company, in other words, to work with the same credit card company at both locations. But if we changed here, they could change down there. But it's the difference in the amount of that bill where it really makes the difference.
I understand. I won't prolong the meeting. I'll just continue to have a discussion with you and Mr. Sossman about it.
Okay. Any questions for me or anything that I can bring you or get you, or anybody I need to talk to, or if you have complaints, let me know. But we are making progress. And I want to commend IT too, because back in October when we were looking to start this, and I know IT's been really taxed, but there was they approached me and says, we're going to have to shift this to after the first of the year. And we're getting closer and closer to rebound. We need all the bugs worked out of this thing, especially on the assessment side, in other words, before we start rebound. And I told Jeff, I said, Jeff, we can't push this thing out. Whatever it takes to get what we need in IT to make this thing work, we got to go ahead in October of this year so we can complete it, in other words, and start on the tax side of it by at least February or March of this year. And I will say that it happened, and we're 80% now through the collection side of it. So I commend them for stepping up to the plate and making that happen. Any questions?
Thank you for the update.
I think I'm next too on the.
Yes, sir. For the zoning ordinance update.
I am. You have a copy of this in front of you. That is a draft zoning map of the whole county. David Williams is here tonight with the Ability Group. Michael Sandy and Cherie, they're here tonight. They're going to bring you this summary of the mapping phase of the countywide zoning. I want to say that, and I don't want to, I know you've heard this before, but I want to say that, this started 2.5, 3 years ago with the comprehensive use plan, land use plan. And then thank you for the commissioners and all of you who have supported this project, been a part of it, been to the open houses, been there, in other words, when we traveled through the county putting this together. You've answered surveys. We've had citizens' inputs across the county. The steering committee has been a part of this thing from the very beginning, and the planning board. And I just want to thank you for standing with us on this project and allowing us to get to this point of where we're at. We're not here tonight for adopting countywide zoning or approving any part of this process. We're not here tonight to do that. There will be a public hearing before any adoptions or anything are done or put in place. I think this process, though, has enlightened us and made us even more aware that we've got to have something more than we've got. We've got to have countywide zoning. We're the only county in the region, and if you've been to the meetings, you've seen that on the map. We're the only county in the region that does not have countywide zoning. And I think that we are very much aware of what the results of not having it means. So tonight they're going to give you a summary of the mapping side of it. They have a PowerPoint presentation. And after the presentation, they'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Commissioners, address them, but if you will, it's all right to hold your questions to after the presentation. If you would, just hold your questions to after the presentation's given. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We can go ahead and bring that down. Oh, okay, I know lights were gonna go off. No, I was going, okay, sorry about that. Yes, man, I didn't know. All right. Good evening, members of the Anson County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, glad to be here tonight, and glad to be back in front of the Commission. We were here last in December of 2021 to give an update to the zoning ordinance process, and want to kind of set you up for that. Part of the zoning ordinance countywide development, part of the process is to develop the zoning text first, so you can get the zoning districts that you'll see tonight. So that's part of phase one. That's what Mr. Newt was talking about. I do have my team here with me tonight. That's Mr. Sandy, who raised his hand, certified planner, over 30 years of experience in zoning. We also have Ms. Cherie Jazar, over 20 years of experience, and she is a certified planner. We also have Sam Shames on our team, who is a land use attorney, part of the process, and yours truly, certified planner, Mr. David Williams, over 30 years of experience. And again, I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. Let's go through this and set the process up. As I mentioned, the zoning ordinance and the zoning map, they go together. They're not really separate. But in terms of this process, developing a countywide zoning ordinance, that part was done first and was part of phase one. Tonight, we're here to talk about or present the zoning map development part of phase two, and that was done pretty much all of 2022. We started around December of 2021, finished this process around June or July of 2022, and we've subsequently have had conversations about the zoning ordinance and also the zoning map process. So there's been a lot of back and forth and get a lot of public input. We work with the steering committee also. And we did, like Mr. Newton mentioned, we did a lot of touring around the county, my team, and just looking at what's on the ground, looking at GIS maps to see what the current land uses were on the property. We want to make sure we match those things up. We want to be extremely intentional about that process. So if somebody had a residential zone, that's the zone that they would have. So kind of matching what's up. If they have commercial, then that would be the case, unless there's some type of non-conforming use. Currently, without the countywide zoning, you would not have that opportunity to do that. So those are some of the components. So part of the zoning ordinance development process, we develop residential districts, commercial districts, industrial districts, and office districts. At this time, I'll mention specifically in terms of residential, we have RA5, RA2, RA3, and RA1, which is your rural agricultural district, which allows residential, farms, etc. And then we've got a little bit more density type districts, which you'll see tonight from Mr. Sandy, and that is R40, low density residential, R20, medium density residential, and then R10, which is an urban density residential. And those numbers in terms of 40, 20, and 10 basically designate the lot size. So if you're R40, you have a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size. You have 20,000 minimum lot size requirement. In terms of the R1, 2, 3, and 5, that designation relates to lot size also. So if you have an RA5, the minimum lot size is 5 acres. If you have an RA1, the minimum lot size requirement is 1 acre. In terms of neighborhood, we have NB, neighborhood commercial district, also a highway commercial district, which would be along the highway corridors, and also general business, general commercial district, a limited industrial district, which is LI, and a heavy industrial district also. And the last zoning district is your planned employment center district, which is a mix of use for employment opportunities where you can have employment and residential on the same site. Pretty common in zoning right now is doing mixed use zoning to allow to reduce vehicular traffic. I will mention, as we develop the zoning ordinance, the approach from the steering committee and the directive from planning board was to make sure that we did it in a way that was gradual, that it was also, and so that it was make it compatible and it was customized for Anson County. And so part of that, we came up with the concept of zoning light. And at the direction of the steering committee and the planning board, that's the approach that we use to develop these zoning districts. So the planning board and the steering committee was charged with leading the process. We had a number of meetings for both the zoning ordinance and also the zoning map process. I will mention too, Mr. Chairman, that the steering committee, planning board, they spent a lot of time on this process, and the steering committee not only did the the zoning ordinance process part, but also stayed on and did the mapping part. So a little bit more time that they invested in this process. So we want to thank them for their commitment and their community engagement as part of this process. We have one member here tonight, Mr. Evans, in the back of the room, who was a faithful member of that steering committee that pretty much attended all those meetings, those public input meetings. Again, we finished the mapping component around June or July of this year. We've been working with the county manager and Mr. Newton about a time to come up and give a review. And like tonight, Mr. Newton mentioned that there's no adoption for tonight. This is pretty much an update to the commissioners, take any questions that you may have. But a public hearing would need to be set sometime in the future so the public will have an opportunity to come out, give input, and also ask questions. Mr. Newton and the previous county managers and even the current county manager, the key has been to be as transparent as possible. You'll hear tonight from Ms. Jazar about the input meetings, and we opened the books up when it came to zoning ordinance and also the zoning map. Because we feel that was extremely important. Mr. Newton and the county managers felt that was important to make sure that whatever we did, we put it in front of the public so that they can comment on it. That's part of the process, and we understand that. And so, but we wanted to do the best job that we could, make sure that we was intentional and deliberate about hearing from the public about a county-wide zoning ordinance. I will reiterate what Mr. Newton mentioned. Anson County this is a county-wide zoning ordinance, not a portion. Anson County does have a portion of the county zone along Highway 74, and I believe the White Store area. But there's a large portion of the county that's unzoned currently. And but we know Union County's has countywide zoning. To the south of us, Chesterfield County, Richmond County, also Stanley County. That's significant, probably in 2022. So my team and I, working with the steering committee and the planning board, wanted to make sure that when we took this process, and it's like Mr. Newton mentioned, it's been close to 2 years. And Mr. Newton then mentioned about the land use plan part. You have to have that land use plan first that the commissioners adopted. I believe, Mr. Newton, that was a couple more years, right? Yeah. So you're talking close to four years in the making of the total process. Land use plan, which the zoning ordinance, developing a countywide zoning ordinance, that was part of that recommendation or in that land use plan. So that's where we are tonight. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Cherie Jazar. She's going to give a brief overview in terms of the community engagement piece and the community input. I will say this about Cherie. When it came to a lot of communication with the public, there's a question about something, we tried to not only go talk, publicly in a meeting, but there were some conversations that were held on the side of trying to answer questions for a lot of the citizens, and she did a great job of conveying what this process was about. Again, it's a process, and we wanted to make sure that we're intentional. And tonight, after Cherie speaks, Mr. Sandy will come up. He'll give an overview of the zoning districts that I referenced, which is in the draft zoning ordinance, in terms of how that process happens. So this time I'll turn it over to Mrs. Jazar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and good evening. Yes, I'm Cherie, and I remember some of your faces. I had the opportunity of leading our group's efforts to get as much input as possible. We've had over 14 meetings, including in the zoning ordinance drafting and in the mapping phase, meeting with community members about getting their input. We always had the opportunity to do a presentation before those meetings, so they kind of got the education of what was happening, why it was happening, where we were. And then we opened the floor up to general conversations to get their input, to answer questions, clarify anything. We did that openly in the meeting. And then we had small group meetings, one-on-one with David, Larry, myself, and Mike, to answer any specific questions about property-specific questions. I think there was a cross-section of feedback that we got at the meetings from the community. We made sure that all the questions that were given, we drafted, we recorded those so that citizens who weren't present at the meeting could understand what kind of questions were coming up and how we were responding back to those. So, that was my role. I think, a planner, we really take public input very seriously because it informs what the draft map will look like. And then Mike took that and David took that into account in making sure that that input was included in what is presented in the draft. I can turn it over to Mike unless you have any questions about the public input or the community meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, staff, my name is Michael Sandy. I've been part of this process with the Ability Group, countywide zoning. Glad to have the experience to do it. It's been a long process, but it's going to be well deserved. As far as the mapping, you have a copy of it in your packet of the proposed, should have a copy of the packet of the proposed map for Anson County for the zoning. As David alluded to, a lot of input was put in to the creation of the map by input from the citizens and also from the municipalities and what their current zoning is right now. For each town has their own local zoning. They will. We took all that information that we gathered from your tax information, tax uses, did ride-bys of a lot of roads in Anson County. I can't say I went on every one of them. There's a lot of roads out there. And looked at every use as much as possible, matched up the map in those districts to the proposed map. So we do have those rural agricultural districts. That was very important in Anson County because you are a rural agricultural community. But you also have some industrial and commercial uses that we need to address along the major roads in those appropriate locations. So if we'll go to the next picture, I'm not sure. Oh, it is. Okay. This one? Sorry, I'll use this one. Too many buttons up here. Okay. All right. There we go. Here's a copy of the map that we were just talking about. It's a little skewed, but it's fits on the screen quite well. So you can see the different districts. The light tan on the map is your RA5 district. You also have some RA3 and RA2, which are also in the brown and light tan. We also have some industrial districts down toward Lysville and along the 74 corridor, which you see in red. We have the commercial districts along the highways at certain locations. We also have smaller lots in certain areas that you see in green, and also some around the municipalities. We kept White Store pretty much as it was current zoning because not a lot of changes were out there. We also addressed areas around Burnsville, Ansonville, and Morven based on some land uses that are right outside of town. So that represents the different colors. We did look in detail, like as I said earlier, the town of Wadesboro, Peachton, Polkton, Morven, Lysville, and Ansonville, what their zonings were to match up where their jurisdiction ended and your jurisdiction began. Try to make those a smooth transition. As you also can see, Ansonville's has a ETJ that you granted last year. We also have some protection around the lake. On lake frontage, we did not include agricultural uses. Encourage those. We have some RA40 low density residential along the lakefront to kind of protect the water quality as you have watershed issues to address in that area. We do have adequate industrial areas mapped out that are either current or potential industrial areas. Those will be around the quarries, etc., and around the airport on the north side of town. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't know if we're at the end. Oh, I got one more minute. Oh, we're going to do, if you want me to do township by township, we can. Figure how to. All right, this is the Burnsville Township. As you can see, we got a little bit of commercial in the center of Burnsville, downtown Burnsville near the water tank and the fire department. We also have a little bit higher density right around town with some residential zoning. Everything else around there in town is R85. And this is the around Ansonville. As you can see, we have some RA3, and we have some commercial along the corridors along 52 north, and some industrial on 52 south. So we're in the Lysville Township. As you can see, the watershed in the hatched area, still RA5 residential agricultural zoning, but along the lake we require larger lots. We included those in the R40 district, which does not encourage agricultural uses. Existing ones can remain. South of Lysville, you have some industrial areas that are existing industrial, a lot of the quarry areas, along the highway commercial zone, and then south of town, down toward Morven, an RA3 district. As you can see, 52 south toward Morven, you see some commercial and light industrial. Morven Township, more of the same. Around Morven, And so along the lake, you have larger lots, interior areas around Morven, RA3. And Wadesboro Township is an extension of what the town ETJ and city limits are in green, in the light green, but the other colors there match up with what their existing zoning is now and existing land uses.
Excuse me, can I
Sure.
mention one thing? We had a scheduled closed session at the end. The attorney that was going to be with us then had an emergency. He said he can only talk to us right now and then he's got to go. I guess I would ask the board if we would be able to go. I apologize. I just want to ask the board what we should do. Should we go into closed session now since he's going to have to go if we don't, and just hold off on your presentation and come back out? I'd ask the pleasure of the board. The attorney that was going to meet with us at the end, closed session, had emergency. He said he can come back and talk to us now, but if we can't do it now, he's got to go. So I'd ask the board what would be your pleasure?
We've already, this is just my 2 cents worth. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. We've already gone out once.
Okay.
I don't know if we would be open to coming back at a later date if this is something that we need to do, as opposed to going back into closed session. And it's been our experience. We said we're going in 10 to 15 minutes, and it's 45 minutes by the time we get through.
Okay.
That's
So,
just a suggestion.
I take that. Anyone else? It's a pleasure of the board. We just continue, and we'll have to schedule at a different time. Is that?
We'll have to determine the date, and if we recess tonight, we'll have to determine the date to come back. If we adjourn, we'll have to call a meeting.
Okay. At this time, do you want to pick a date that we could? I guess it would be a special meeting that we would adjourn till having a special meeting.
It wouldn't be a special meeting, just recess.
Yeah, if you just recess, you can recess to a certain time.
What date is he available? Can you tell us?
Go find out, I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
Yeah.
Just let him go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
Just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Gullish Township, it's not a lot of activity in this area. This is just right south of Wadesboro, to the west of Morven. A lot of that, most of that is RA5. And let's see, Lanesboro Township, as you can see, where Peachtree and Polkton are in the light green. Along those corridors, you do have some RA1, RA2, RA3 zoning. And the north and south of town, you have the RA5 zoning designation. On the far left, you see some industrial zoning right at the county line, north of Highway 74. And to the right of Polkton, you'll see that's in the red, that's located where the county landfill's at currently. And White Stork Township, as I mentioned earlier, was basically unchanged from from what you currently have, because that township is zoned. Be glad to answer any questions from the mapping perspective.
Thank you. If that's it for the zoning ordinance update, then we would go into the Polkton ETJ with Mr. Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. Town of Polkton is looking at adopting ETJ for the town, much like the process we did last year for Ansonville. They've hired me to help them through the process through General Statute 160D-202 process. We want to begin with asking the commissioners, not a formal vote, but at least a consensus for the town to move forward on adopting ETJ. Your packet does have a picture of the proposed. That is the maximum that they can go. They're probably going to go somewhat less than the maximum, but I just wanted to show you the map that that's the further extent by law they can go for 1 mile in any direction from the primary corporate limits. So I'm here to answer any questions, but the town of Polkton would like to be able to proceed to adopt ETJ once they follow the general statute requirements for public hearing on their side.
I asked, in the absence of Attorney Forbes, I asked the question of him prior to the meeting, whether there would be any revenue loss for the county if we were to accept that, and his answer was no. I hate to speak for him, but since he's not right here, and I know that would be one of the concerns that we had discussed that, and there would be no loss of revenue to the county, which I think would be a concern of the board.
ETJ is only for zoning and development regulations. It doesn't affect the taxation. Polkton doesn't get any tax revenue from ETJ. As you saw in your packets, the only minuscule will be permit revenue, and that'll be just based on the growth in that ETJ. If it's like a zoning permit, would go to the town versus the county. So that's it would be minor amount.
Chairman Bricken, also the county attorney emailed me today and asked me if we lost any of our resources for collecting taxes in these ETJs.
Yeah.
And we do not. We still seem to have the same power in there as we do throughout the county.
So between that question and the revenue question, I don't see any concern, but I would ask the board at this time if they would like to make a motion to accept the ETJ.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow the town of Polkton to proceed with the project.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Cottle. Is there any discussion, further discussion? And just before we all in favor say aye, since Attorney Forbes came back, I just quoted our conversation that you said there'd be no lost revenue if we were to move forward with the ETJ for the county.
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
There'll be no lost revenue for the county.
That's right, I appreciate that.
Sure.
So, based on that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Okay. Mr. Kiker from LKC, update on the sewer line extension.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you this evening. I'm here as a result of a conversation that Mr. Sessions and Mr. Sossman and I had in early December. Last year you authorized our firm to prepare design drawings for a sewer line extension on Highway 74 East from just on the other side of Wade Mill, about a half a mile near the intersection of Whispering Pines Road. And the design for that is complete. As we started to energize the permitting process and thinking about construction, we had a couple of questions that we discussed with the county manager and with Mr. Sessions. We provided a brief memo out of interest of your time. I'm happy to go through that in detail if you would like, or if you have specific questions, I'll pause and let you ask, Mr. Chairman, at your discretion, whatever you prefer.
I think the main question, since we had made one motion for the increased price that we had not anticipated, where are we now with the cost of this project?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we do not have bids in hand, so we're still going off an engineer's cost estimate. And we have provided this to Mr. Sessions, and I don't recall when it was last shared with you. Our latest budget for construction is $638,000.
Okay, good. Okay, and do you feel pretty comfortable with that number?
That's a really tricky question in the current market. Yeah, I'm reasonably comfortable with it. Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't put a high level of confidence in it. It's hard. It's very difficult, as I'm sure you understand, to have a high level of confidence in the current market. It's a very energetic time.
And that would include east of Whispering Pines. We would get to the east side of Whispering Pines on 74.
It does include crossing Whispering Pines Road and setting a manhole on the east of the road. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. Yes.
And Mr. Kiker, when do you expect the project to be completed?
So it's a good question, Mr. Gatewood. So there were really two topics posed in the memo that we sent, and one of those questions was relative to the timing of construction. So we are to a point now where once a couple of administrative items are covered, that we really could have this sewer line built in a 6 to 8 month time frame. And so one of the questions that we posed to Mr. Sossman and he wanted to bring before you tonight was, did you want to proceed with construction before there was a tenant in the potential commercial site finishing the upfit of the building, or did you want to wait? And the reason for waiting was, at this point where we are, you could be done within you could build the line and have it ready within the same time frame that a potential tenant could upfit the building. So the answer to your question directly, Mr. Gatewood, is in the 6 to 8 month time frame.
Thank you.
And I think that because this sewer line is not exclusively for the mini mart, and we're trying to expand our opportunities for industrial growth further east, I don't know that we would need to make a motion tonight, but I feel comfortable that we would just keep moving with this project, regardless of the tenant. Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, we would respond to the direction of your staff or you as a board if you so choose. I do not believe there's a right or a wrong answer to the question. We just felt like it was a prudent question to ask.
Right, we've had some really good energetic conversations concerning the line and the start or stop date, and the questions about the cost. I guess the caveat I would say, and I think Mr. Kiker will agree, is that the longer we wait with this market the way it is, the costs are likely going to go up because of construction materials, mostly. So, but the other side of that question is, you know, you're kind of betting on the come that Mr. Wallace, not doubting that you don't buy a piece of property like that and let it sit there vacant. So I think if we started it, because he's called me a few times, and I think he's also called Mike Sessions, who's our utilities director, a few times, and his first question is always, when do you get it complete? So I would ask the board to maybe give a green light to me and Mr. Sessions, that it's your pleasure to go ahead and start as soon as we can put it out on the street for bid, then do so.
Just to cover us properly, would we like to make a motion to that effect?
We can, because I think the other thing too is, you know, the property owner has indicated that having sewer already there will be a selling point for him attracting people to his location.
And he's been hesitant to reach out to businesses that need an answer of when they can start up, and so I think that's really hurt him and some of the people that have looked at locating there. If the board is satisfied to just give him the okay, or would you like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we proceed with the project ASAP.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Woodburn to proceed ASAP. Is there any discussion?
Can we get it done in 4 months?
Yeah.
ASAP.
Like add extra A to it. Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. And one question I have on permitting wetland and the fact that we're boring under a creek, have we gotten all that approved?
Mr. Chairman, we do not anticipate at this point there needing a wetlands disturbance permit. All of the project, with one small exception, will be inside the DOT right of way,
Okay,
which is
good.
previously disturbed area.
Okay, good. Okay.
There was, if I may, Mr. Chairman, there was one more topic in my memo, and this may be an administrative for your staff to consider and report back. There's a discussion of who owns the sewer line,
Yes.
and this is one of those questions where there's no right or wrong answer. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that was one of the topics we presented, and if we need to follow up, we can. I didn't want to overlook that while I'm here tonight.
I appreciate that, and I assume Mr. Sussman has been talking with Mr. Edwards.
I haven't talked to him. It's been primary discussion between Mr. Kiker, Mr. Sessions, and myself. But and there's a couple ways you can approach it. And as against what Mr. Kiker said, there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, because the way the line's being constructed now, obviously it's now presently owned, or will be owned by the county unless it decides to turn it over for some reason to the town of Waitsboro. Also, there's the question that if you want to extend the line further, and Mr. Kiker is prepared to tell you how much further, you could have it as you could have the mini mart as your retail customer, meaning you could be receiving a higher dollar but there's also the trade-off that it's probably going to cost another $250,000 or more, depending on, again, the market price of construction, to be able for you to capture it as the county retail customer versus having the town have the mini mart as its retail customer, which then in fact would make it the county's wholesale customer. And of course, the long-term value, and I've talked to Mr. Sessions, who's here, and I know he can jump up and scream, but it's been my experience over the years. You make money usually selling water, treated water, you don't really make much money selling, raw water, as we know. And we've got a raw water contract, and you get some, and I'm not downplaying it. But then on the sewer side, if you break even with sewer or come close, you're doing pretty good. It's just because it's something that's a necessity for development. So where the county would recoup its investment, whether it's 650 or 700,000, is off the value of the land, which rests in Larry's capable hands, from the tax state. So then that's just the honest truth. It's brutal, but it's true.
And the property and the retail sales from the store itself. So I agree with what you're saying, is that I think the investment to the county is not necessarily in the money coming from the sewage as it is from the business itself, and the potential business that we're allowing that corridor to expand. We talked about before across the street where there's a 30 or 40 acre site that's a very good development spot, and at that time all they'd have to do is bore under the road to reach that pipe then, and they'd have access. So I think the investment there, and just my opinion, I wouldn't get too hung up on the sewer water wholesale or retail.
There's some other fish that we're gonna go after that's gonna be, I'm talking about serious grant dollars that I've just become aware of, that the state, Mr. Kiker probably already knows from an engineering perspective, they probably knew before I did, that the state has decided to allocate something close to $2 billion in their ARPA money for water and sewer projects, particularly for safe water for drinking and sewage. And so we've got some options on the table for us there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, hear your pleasure, and happy to answer any other questions. If not, we'll proceed with haste. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we would go into the administrative matters which we had discussed previously, and that's going to be the 2023 county attorney contract. So at this time, to extend that contract, we would need a motion from the board to extend the contract of the county attorney for 2023 for our board.
I make a motion we extend the contract for the 2023 for the county attorney.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mims to extend the contract, second by Commissioner Gatewood. Any discussion?
Mr. Attorney, you okay with the contract as it is?
I am. I want to make sure this.
Good deal. That's all I need to hear.
Right.
Is that all the way yes, or you're still looking at something?
You're looking at reducing the rate over there? Is that what it is?
We get a rebate?
Yeah. Y'all get a return on your weekend dates.
He told me I'm working him too hard for you guys.
And lady.
Let's see. If you don't mind, the only thing I would like to have the board consider is paying. They used to pay for the CLEs back that are sponsored by the state, the county government. The CLEs, the continuing legal education.
Yeah.
I'm required to go to those. COVID kind of cut that out. I was wondering if y'all would be willing to pay for those again like you used to.
What's the estimated amount?
I do not know. I can't remember because y'all always paid for it. I don't know. It's less than $2,000, but it covers for the whole year. So.
Okay, if we've always paid for it, what do you want us to do?
Continue to pay for it.
I made my motion to add that too.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
line number 5, that would be on there.
Okay, the motion made and updated by Commissioner Mims and second by Commissioner Gatewood to include the training and certification process and to extend the contract for 2023. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like. The motion carries. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now we're going to go to the manager report with Mr. Salzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we jumped into the meeting earlier, we removed 2 items. The first one was A under my section here. to be exact. That's a T-Mobile contract, which is still in process. But then I've got several policies that have been recommended by the Central Iowa Council of Governments, primarily for the reason that we, as you know, we have a lot of grant money coming in. And so in order to keep ourselves in compliance, and as you read off earlier, that conflict of interest policy, that was one that we had to do before my time. But the first one is an Anson County contract policy, and this is one that we've got these from Central Iowa. Lenisa Watkins, I believe, is one that sent with us, and Christina Dennis, and then of course obviously Geraldine Gardner, and they're recommending each one. The one is the contracts with the board, and in lots of cases, this is all about the expenditure of money. You could say that the contracts that are less than $150,000, say $149,999.99, you could authorize me to do them as long as in the budget process you approve the project and you appropriate the funds for it. Otherwise, I would not be able to do so because I can't spend money that's not there. Anything that would be above that amount would automatically come to you all. Now, you can reduce that amount. I would, for my protection, I wouldn't want you to increase it above that number. But if you didn't feel comfortable with that number, you can obviously reduce it. So, but other than that, it's pretty much the same way that Central Iowa is recommending every other governmental entity in this region for adoption.
Okay, what is the board decision on allowing the $149,999 limit on spending without further approval? Would the board care to make a motion to approve that? Or would you want to consider reducing it?
I don't see an issue with allowing him to do that, yeah.
I don't see, I guess the only thing I would say is, and you know, it's got that authority to make the approval, is that it's brought to us just for review as soon thereafter.
It would be made aware of it.
We will already have approved it, the project, before he's ever allowed to sign the contract.
Correct. If that's, in that case, then yes, not an issue.
So,
okay. All right, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to allow the county manager to sign contracts under $149,999.99.
Motion made by Commissioner McCardle, second by Commissioner Mims, to allow the $149.99, and I guess that would be for pre-approved projects, is what we're saying. Okay.
So because the next one you're going to be adopting is for budget adoption.
Yeah.
So if it's not in the budget and approved contract, then I can't approve.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like. Motion carries. Okay.
The next one is and a lot of this stuff that's in the budget adoption policy, you already do, but what they want for us to continue to receive the grant funds is to actually codify it. I guess that's the right word.
That's perfect word.
Perfect word. So we codify it, and what it does state that what I'm supposed to do, and I'll let you know tonight, is that I have to bring to you before January 31 a budget calendar, which is going to lay out the meetings we're going to have going forward, including a workshop or retreat, whichever words you prefer. We hope to do sometime in early February. And so this just lays out exactly how the custody of the funds that are collected. And like I say, again, with the help of Central Iowa Council of Governments, obviously Holly Berry, our finance director, has been involved in this, with all three of these that you're getting tonight. And so we'd like to recommend that you adopt this, and this like your Anson County budget adoption policy, and it goes from A to Z, from starting in I guess about 28 days. By the 31st, we will be sending to you probably by email our proposed, and Denise Campbell, our clerk, and I'll be working on it, so that you can look at it, and if you don't like it, then you can change it at the February meeting if there's some dates in there that you think don't make sense. And we'll base it pretty much on some that you've adopted in the past, the same process. It's not going to be doing anything that's going to be wild and crazy or really brand new. It's just like I said again, it's putting it down in black and white of the policies that we're going to have, and so that we're not running helter-skelter.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Anson County budget adoption process.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Woodburn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Well, the last, and sort of kind of the least because it's the shortest, is the one that deals right out of the general statute, 15932, talks about the handling of funds that are received. And this is your, a county deposit policy. Right now we follow that. Usually they're done fairly, departments that collect a lot of funds like our tax and DMV, and then also water and sewer. They do theirs on the most regular basis, pretty much daily. The ones that might not collect much, so like if they only get like 250, then they're providing more time so that we don't have people burning up the highways and gas unnecessarily, making those deposits of say $50 or so. So if it's less than 250, they don't have to do it daily. If you adopt the policy.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we adopt the Anson County deposit policy.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Next is the
bad news.
Is the record rotation. This is the last policy.
No.
We took off the record rotation.
Yeah.
And then then last was his bad news. Is, I had been hearing speculation since back in September when you first put me in this chair about the termination of the water supply contract between Anson County and Union County. I had a call last week from the interim county manager over in Union County, and he indicated that they had decided to go ahead and give us that 1 year notice. So he called me out of good courtesy and gave it to me verbally, and we have received both a certified copy as of today, as well as the copy that is on this agenda that was emailed to us a week ago.
And just in your estimate, that seems like a loss of about 1.3 million a year in revenue.
I think it's at least that. Well, Mike departed on me, but
Sounds about right, yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
It'll fluctuate some because they obviously they have.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll probably talk to Scott Fuller's here, our genius attorney that you brought back on, about some differences in some contracts, because I'm looking at some other entities that have contacted us that I'll talk to you about.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna see if we can at least replace a good portion of those funds.
Okay, great. And then last?
And last is, I've had some commissioners, and Larry's here, but I've had some commissioners, talk about the possibility of doing a reorganization. Right now, Larry, besides, I mentioned his DMV and also collections, but he also has, planning and inspections. And I know there was some talk about removing those last two operations, planning inspections, from his department head, purview, and moving over to make it a separate department altogether under the manager. You don't have to do that. I know Larry and I have discussed it. I think it works pretty well the way it is, but if you have different opinions, obviously, there's 7 members here, and everybody's gonna have there's gonna be at least 2 or 3 different opinions, usually. But you can do that. I couldn't tell you right now what the effect on the budget will be. If you're creating a new department head, obviously that person who would be the new department head would expect some type of salary increase, I would think. I would have to look and see what that pay range would be to give you an idea. So you don't have to do it tonight. You can do it, but you don't have to.
I'm thinking at this point in time, and I'm looking forward, I think somewhere down the road it's gonna happen, not this, but there will be a department that we'll bring back because of growth in the county. And I think at that particular time, we can do this. I believe at this particular time, the best thing for us to do is not move forward with this.
Hopefully I can safely accuse you of doing something that my wife accuses me of doing, which is creating work. Because what you said is very valid. It's true, because once the new zoning ordinance, which takes it from just a 2-quarter 74 running east and west, and 52 running north and south, you've got those now, and so people getting permits and so forth is one thing, but having one inspector, Mr. Gaskins, and also his associate, you're gonna need another one at least, in my opinion, because when the people start getting more and more permits, and there again, that's where the revenue will come from. That will be in the growth of the tax base itself, and also from a healthy tax base growth standpoint, we need in the county. Now, I have nothing against agriculture. I love it. I mean, I eat just like everybody else. I've got a waistline to prove it. But what I'm saying is, we need to diversify the county's portfolio for other businesses, other industries, clean industries and clean businesses. I'm not sure where that what the heck is it called? The story, if you will, or gossip about a lithium deal. I know Gaston County, because I've known folks over there. I don't have any, well, I may have one distant relative over there married to the family, but I have no connection whatsoever. And so any kind of conspiracy theory trying to link me to the lithium industry, unless Mr. Gatewood got me into some lithium stock or something, I don't know. No, this is true. There's nothing, but you will need probably at least one more zoning person, at least from that perspective.
Yeah, and as far as the people, I don't think that's an issue. We need to do that now, like the assistant building inspector, and if you need somebody else in permitting, that's fine. I'm thinking about just another department is what I'm saying we need to hold off on.
Well, when we've talked in the budget meetings, as soon as we get a handle on the budget, we need to seriously look at the assistant for that building inspector position, because it's gonna take them at least 3 years to get up to speed to fill that position if Mr. Gaskins were to retire, and we don't wanna leave that at a time when we're really promoting building to wind up with no inspector.
Right. Having no inspector is very dangerous, and there's some places that do contract it with other governmental entities, but there's a price tag that comes with it, like there is with everything. All right, and there's also some private companies that provide those types of services. But I would prefer to have it here so that they answer directly, like through Larry to me to you. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really a short circuit. I mean, you have a meeting and you can discuss it at any time. And as you know, you can call a call meeting, a special meeting with like a 48-hour notice if we think something. But as I indicated earlier, I want to get the budget process started with Hollis, and I've talked about it this month, and then let you consider whichever direction you want to go.
Mr. Woodburn, I would like to suggest that we proceed. Up until, I think it was 2017 or 2018, this was an independent department, as you may recall. It was a 3-person department at one time. Marvin Kudadis, Keith Gaskin was his understudy, and Sandy Stogner, I believe.
Yep.
It was an independent department. It worked extremely well, and as we look to growth to the future, I think we need to do it now as opposed to holding off on it. That would be my recommendation. And my motion.
And I'm also thinking about getting a little bit more creative with that, which we can't do right now. But
could we approach it without offering a wage increase? I mean, that's not automatic. I mean, there may be an assumption that we would increase the price to be a separate department, but we don't have to do that.
No, I think we look at I'm sorry.
I wasn't thinking about any wage increases.
Well, he was saying that there may be a wage increase associated with the change, and I was just saying that we shouldn't assume that we have to do that because,
If there is a compensation increase, we're coming up to the budget process, we can address it then. But I think we need to move on with the reorganization and create a separate department.
And look for the assistant.
I'm sorry?
And look for assistant.
as soon as we get a handle on the budget, that's gotta be one of the #1 positions to fill. And it's been 10 years since that position of assistant was vacated, and I don't know where the salary savings, I'm not saying they went somewhere wrong, but I wonder in the salary savings over that 10-year period where you had one inspector instead of an inspector and an assistant, it'd be interesting to find out, that money went somewhere else, not anything wrong, but is that money better served to go back to that assistant position from wherever it wound up going?
Got a feeling after a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, it went away.
That's what I mean, yeah.
It went away.
Yeah, so wherever it went away, we just gotta wonder if it could ever come back.
So I'd like to repeat my motion. A motion to proceed with the reorganization and create a new building inspections department as we've had in the past for many years.
Second.
And for discussion, and we could say not to increase the funding for that program until we get in more involved in the budget to fund. If we don't, so is it okay to make the motion according to leaving the budget in its present? Okay, Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Mims. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign?
I
Uh,
know what's driving this, so that's why I'm voting against it.
okay, Commissioner Woodburn is voting against, so we have Commissioner Gatewood, Mims, Cottle, Bricken.
I vote against it.
Okay, Commissioner Little? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have, 4 for the change and 2 against and 1 sustained. So the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And now, one other comment, or maybe more than one, but, I'm gonna have to get with Larry and Holly, and, you know, of course, there's gonna be, obviously, the budget impact there is gonna be creating that department. I mean, I know where they are, of course, we know where they're housed in the annex, but, before we can get there, there's some, you'll see some admin things, so it won't be like it's tomorrow morning. It could be in effect, you know, very shortly, but from the organizational standpoint. And, I did find out from Miss Ingram, or from Katie, that, while we have an organizational, an org chart, if you will, I want to get it more formalized. And so we'll work on that so that whenever you adopt the budget, in June, then also I want you to, if you will, approve a bona fide org chart for Anson County.
That sounds good. All right, that's it for the manager report. Chairman report, I have nothing to report. In commissioner concerns, Mr. Woodburn, when you had talked about those concerns originally, are you satisfied with that, or do you want to elaborate on commissioner concern?
Which ones? The ones I mentioned?
Yeah.
Like I said, these on what I've had was not concerned with just
Okay.
informational purposes, and
Okay.
I think I've talked enough about them. The only thing I will say is that, we'll have somebody from Central Iowa, once it gets going, come to the board and make a presentation to give us an update on, you know, where they are at that particular time. That's about the only thing I can add now.
Okay, and because the closed session that was scheduled, because of the emergency of the attorney, we'll go into recess, is that what you suggest?
Yes, I spoke with him. He says that he has a choice of speaking with you over the phone, or he can come back down here tomorrow afternoon, or even Thursday, if y'all would like to speak with him. Depending on what you would like, if you wanted to, if you know that time frame, you could recess to that time frame, and you would not have to, hold another meeting, or you would not, you could hold the meeting open like that.
But we want the whole board to be present, irregardless of how we do it.
Pardon?
We want the whole board to be present no matter what we do.
Certainly, you can take a consensus right now as to when you would want to hold it over until then.
What would the pleasure of the board be? Were you saying Wednesday, you know, what time Wednesday was he talking about?
I can find out.
Okay. I know. The total, the total is, with our fund balance, we don't have yet. And then, you know, and I asked how much more for that. I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. I got a meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow. I got a meeting from about 9 to 11 tomorrow. After that, I'm free.
If they are available tomorrow or Thursday, anytime after 3 o'clock.
It's up to you. Yeah, yeah. I have a 2:30 meeting, Council of Aging. I think you have that one too, right?
Yes.
It's 2:30 on Thursday. You're saying after what time?
3.
So we could probably be available by 3:30, you think?
3:15.
3:15? What is everyone okay with 3:15 on Thursday? 3:15?
Wait a minute, I've got something to 3:30, so.
All right, 3:30, Mr. Woodman, 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock on Thursday?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Thursday, and we just meet here?
Yes.
Okay, 4 o'clock on Thursday, okay with everybody? Okay.
Sound good.
Okay, alright.
I'll confirm that right quick, if that's
Okay,
all right with the
okay,
board.
that's fine. And being a closed session, we would start an open, go into close if there's nothing to talk about, and then come out and and then go back into open, and if there's no, then we would, so it won't be to the public, it'll start out as open session. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we call a meeting, you start open session, even if it's not just long enough to go into closed session. You go into closed session, and once your closed session's finished, you come out of closed session. If there's nothing to report, just state that and
Adjourn
adjourn.
open session, thank you.
I'm just pleased to get the notice
Yeah.
in a timely manner.
Yeah.
48.
Are there posting requirements for a recession?
For recess? No, we announced tonight that we'll recess
Okay.
through 4 o'clock on
On Thursday?
Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, good, I just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess he's confirming.
Mr. Chair. He is available by phone on Thursday. I did not understand that at the beginning. If you want him physically present, he can be here tomorrow afternoon, anytime after 3:30. Depends on what y'all want. He can appear by phone on Thursday though, or tomorrow afternoon.
I'm available tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I prefer tomorrow.
I'd rather, could you come tomorrow in the afternoon? What time?
Was that after 3 too?
I believe you said 3:30. I'm asking again. Apologize for leaving the room.
I can do it in the afternoon, I just got something in the morning.
He said after 3 on both days.
Okay.
He said.
And that's okay with you too then, after 3? Yes,
He
ma'am.
said after 3, so we're looking at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock's okay with Commissioner Gateway?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Little? Okay. Okay, 4 o'clock on tomorrow, everybody's
That works
okay?
for me.
Okay.
He can confirm.
Yeah, one thing, don't keep telling me.
No matter if we meet, if he ain't here.
Yeah. I don't wanna do phone stuff, I'm not even good on the phone.
That's it on the calendar.
Yeah.
What was that? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. She goes back next.
He can be here tomorrow by 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Okay. So as of now, we adjourn until 4 o'clock?
No, sir. Recess.
I'm sorry, recess. Okay, I gotta get my terminology right.
Recess until 4 p.m.
So that's what I meant to say, yeah, okay.
On January the 4th.
So, okay, so at this time, we recess until tomorrow, January 4th at 4 o'clock, and we'll meet back here. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, well, I guess we're done. I make a motion that we recess until 4 p.m. on January the 4th.
Commissioner Woodburn
Second.
makes a motion to recess till January.
January the 4th at 4 p.m.
4 p.m. Commissioner Gatewood second.
Absolutely.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed to recess until tomorrow at 4 o'clock.